Hey you guys, thanks for coming to the Encounter Weekend. My name is Dr. Melanie. I have my doctorate in Christian counseling and my master's degree in alternative medicine, and I've been practicing here in Pensacola for 10 years. I'm so excited to share with you a couple of the things that I've learned on my soul journey, and I know that you'll be taking home some valuable tips as you leave this Encounter Weekend. So on my journey from sickness to health, I began with many physical symptoms. And I went through the medical system and I went through trying to discover what is the root cause of my symptoms. And I went through this whole process and physically saw such a change. But then I began to notice some mental and some emotional symptoms that I could no longer ignore. And that is when I discovered the process of soul healing. I had worked so much on my physical body, but now there were things that were starting to surface. And it reminds me of a verse found in Proverbs 25 that says, "The heart of a man is like water in a deep well, but a man of understanding draws it out." So if I can paint this picture for you, there's so many different wells that we can have within our soul. We can have things like love, joy, or peace in our wells, or we can have things like anger, or bitterness, or unforgiveness. And when those things are in our wells, within our daily life, we're going to come across triggers or emotional reactions that are going to draw on those wells. And whatever we've got in our well, that's what's going to come out. So throughout my process of soul healing, I discovered that it is through the power of the cross and the power of the resurrection that I can apply those two dynamics to all of my emotions, to all of my memories, to all of my circumstances. And when I do that, I have an understanding of my authentic identity and who I am as a child of God. Our soul is three parts. It's our mind, our will, and our emotions. And if we have unresolved emotions or traumas or hurts that have never been addressed, then that can begin to affect our physical body. So if we have gone through a major life crisis or a loss of a job or a sickness, a long-term sickness, or even someone in our family, that can affect our soul, which in turn can affect our physical body. And sometimes our physical symptoms are actually a representation of what's going on in our soul. So as an example, if we have the emotion of bitterness, we may be having issues with our gallbladder, or we may be having mid-back problems or gallstones. And essentially, when we have those symptoms, it's actually like our soul speaking to us. And it's our soul saying, hey, I need some attention. I need you to address something. And so it's not that we have to run to the doctor and do some physical thing. It's actually more of a spiritual soul process that we need to address. So a lot of times if you're having those symptoms of like gallbladder symptoms, it's actually a fear of repeating the past. And so it's your soul is trying to bring something up to process it, but sometimes we don't have the tools to process the event. Or if we're having bitterness, it can be a lack of trust. And so as you go through this process, it's important that we don't have to judge or criticize ourselves when we are going through this process and dealing with these emotions. They're really just messengers there to teach us what's going on in our belief system, what is going on that's causing us to think unhealthy thoughts or make poor decisions or react in an overly reactive way. So it's not necessarily that we're judging ourselves, it's that we're being open to the process of healing and we're inviting God into those areas. We're becoming conscious. Or if we have unforgiveness. Unforgiveness can affect our nervous system, and our nervous system controls everything. It controls breathing, it controls walking, it controls circulation in our brain. So if we have unforgiveness, we can be dealing with a lot of pain. We can be dealing with a victim mindset or really trouble letting go. And we sort of create this refusal to move forward. And really what that's telling us is there's traumas and hurts that haven't been acknowledged. And so it's really important as you're going through this process that it's okay to acknowledge, it's okay to become vulnerable with these very sensitive emotions, because that's when healing occurs. When we become honest with ourselves and honest with other people, we can then become honest with God, and that's where real healing takes place. And then with anger. So anger can affect our pain. It can affect muscle pain, bone pain, inflammation. This can come across as joint pain or even inflamed thinking. This can affect the liver. And so this can affect our body's ability to filter blood. So if there's a blood problem, or if there's a detoxification issue, sometimes the emotion of anger is actually stored or repressed, and our physical body is manifesting what's going on in our soul. So that's how it's connected. So when we feel anger, it gives us a sense that we no longer have direction. And that's when we begin to feel that out of control, kind of frustrated feeling. But it's a normal emotion. We need anger. Anger actually helps us in the fight or flight response, so we need it. It's very needed. But what we need is a healthy expression of anger. And sometimes we need to dig a little bit deeper with anger. And with anger, it expresses really loud, but really on the inside, there's often more sensitive emotions going on. So there could be some pain, some hurt, some grief. You may be feeling shame or embarrassed. And really, when we become honest with ourselves, and what that looks like is giving yourself some room instead of reacting once again out of a behavior pattern that doesn't produce any good fruit and it doesn't help you connect with the people in your life. Really sitting back and getting quiet and getting with yourself and saying, what is this anger really saying? Is this actually the wound of me thinking that I'm not good enough coming up again? And what ends up happening is you end up connecting with God through your emotions, and you end up getting emotionally regulated by meeting with Him in that special place, because it goes back to your identity, and then you begin to see how He sees you, and how He sees you as your authentic identity. Not what happens in your environment. It's not how other people see us. That's not our identity. It's how He sees us. One thing I want to highlight, especially when it comes to our physical body, is the importance of sleep. And sleep is so important because our entire body is run by a circadian rhythm. And this is a God-given circadian rhythm, right? When the sunlight is up, our cortisol is the highest, our digestion is the best, we should be at our optimal brain performance. And then as the sun goes down, our energy should go down, and our body is getting ready for sleep. It's getting ready for repairing us. So if you notice any changes there, if you notice that you're tired during the day and you have tons of energy at night, there may be something going on with your cortisol, with a circadian rhythm imbalance. So sleep is important because it helps us to prevent cancer, because as we're sleeping, our body is cleansing and detoxifying itself. It helps balance our blood pressure, cravings, mood, and our hormones. It helps with weight management and with keeping our memory sharp. So exercise helps our lymphatic system. It helps to keep our blood sugar balanced, our blood pressure healthy. It also helps to decrease our risk of heart disease. So it is important, but it's also important that we are not extreme with exercise, because that can actually be really stressful on the body. So I usually recommend 20 minutes of walking or stretching every day, and that's really all you need as far as exercise goes. Lastly, what I want to discuss is diet. And our diet certainly is a piece of the puzzle. It's not everything. It's so easy for us to think, very religiously when it comes to diet, but really you kind of have to find a balance and a pattern that works for you. So with diet, again, I don't like to think in extremes. I would rather your diet be simple and sustainable, focusing on real foods, on whole foods, but then giving yourself some leeway to also be human. So you may opt for 80-20, maybe 80% of the time you're going to be, clean, whole foods, and then 20% of the time if you're out, you're going to maybe have more freedom. Or if you're on a specific healing protocol, you're going to follow that protocol more strictly. But when your body is healed, you shouldn't need as strict of a protocol. Your body was designed to heal and repair itself, and it can tolerate a lot. So just because your diet is perfect doesn't mean that you're not going to have issues. So with your diet, you have options, and what I always like to say is keep it simple, keep it sustainable, and in general, the healthier your relationship with food, and the better your sleep is. The more you're focusing on better sleep, when you're focusing on getting healthy movement into your life and not over-exercising. All these three things have an impact on your physical body. And so it's not about, it's not a religion. It's not about being perfect in any of these areas. It's really, it's more about your identity and connecting with God and being authentic with that relationship. And that will just filter through in your relationship with food and the physical aspects of your life. So with the physical body and with physical health, it is important because that is actually what helps us get deeper with soul healing. So if we're continually burying or numbing our emotions or our pain with food or with excess information, and just we're so bombarded with stuff on our phones, and it's so easy to numb out our emotions and things going on in our soul. That's where the physical tools help us to get a little bit deeper. That's really where fasting comes in. Fasting helps us to draw out what is in the wells within our soul. And it makes it really plain and clear regarding even what you're craving. So if you're, craving all day long sugar or carbs, and you begin to eat cleaner, you begin to recognize that your body doesn't actually need the sugar or carbs, but that there's something underneath the craving. There's something there that your soul is longing for you to address. And so the power of fasting is that it draws out what it is that's in our soul that we need to focus on and work on. Physical health is important, but it's also important to know that we're all connected. And this is where the soul healing comes in. This is where this weekend comes in. And it's a time to refocus and really assess what is going on within your inner soul and working on that. And it all matters. It's all a big piece of the puzzle, but healing and wholeness can happen. And I'm so excited for you guys at this weekend. I think it'll be very healing.